welcome Ricky Archer, who's going to run us through this wonderful next panel and bring up all our speakers. So take it away, Ricky.
Thanks, Costa.
Yeah, made up for caring for country. But what does it mean, caring for country? If all you blackfellas out there in your country, you say you're blackfella, go and identify a rock hole that you clean out, help that environment a little bit. Because you're caring for country, you're caring for the animal too, eh?
You call that napachi, napachi.
Napachi, napachi.
Napachi, napachi.
You give me, I'll give you. Well, these young men, they came to a place called Gracevale Station and they helped maintain a rock hole. Never make fire inside the rock hole.
Yeah.
You make it out.
Okay.
About 80 months ago, traditional owners belonging in this country, they cleaned out that rock hole and the country started talking to us straight away.
Oh, oh.
It's very grounding, you know, it shows that, you know, wait a second, this is actually something that can make a difference, not only in our neighbour's country, but also in our own country and also in your own country, wherever you're from. Even in the last few days that we've been putting water in this water hole, we've seen more animals come by here. I've never felt closer to country than I have in the last couple of weeks. It's amazing.
This experience has taught me the value of caring for country, the real value of why you should care for country as not only just an Indigenous person, but anybody that lives in this country, because it's a collective thought amongst us all, that we all have a sacred place that connects us through the water. Water travels all around this country, all around this continent. So, you know, it's what brings us all together.
Waterhole like your heart, and your heart's got a beat, and then the waterways and the way they go out and across the country are the veins and the arteries that feed this living organism that's out there that feeds us. And so if our heart is clogged up and dried up and silted up and can't breathe, the water and the veins can't breathe, so country's sick.
Big country. So could you imagine if each mob cleaned out one rock hole? Sacred site is a garden, your place of worship. That's where you got to look after it. Ngapachi, ngapachi.
Napachi, napachi. It's pretty good, huh? I think I'll introduce myself. Do you want me to?
Yeah, I was supposed to,
You
but
were supposed to?
we're really going to be flexible in this session.
Yeah, you notice I'm the only one up here, so I get to control the show. Hey.
I'm going to let you
No.
open off the back of that
absolutely.
good introduction.
And you know, and I think it was a great segue into what Brother Victor had brought in talking about country. And it's a good balance, you know, men's and women's, how we collectively work together and see our country and the work that's really important about our country, our mother, the provider of life. And that's what's so important to us. So I think I'll leave it at that, because I think through this, I think we'll get to talk. I'll hand it back over to you, brother.
Thank you. So thanks again to give us this opportunity to be here. I want to introduce Suzanne Thompson, who you've just heard from. Again, good to see my brother over here, Victor Stephenson, who you all know. And I'd like to introduce my mate and colleague, Raphael Clark, who works with me in Darwin at NALSMA. I've been asked to help out with some proceedings in the form of hosting this panel. I think what we're going to do is just talk for a bit, answer some questions. Costa and the team are going to field questions virtually, and we'll get old mate to take a microphone around and get some questions going. There was a lot of interest in this panel. That's why they put us in the big house. Otherwise, we'd have been tucked away in a little closet downstairs somewhere. So it just shows that there's a lot of interest, and we're really thankful, really grateful for it. And yeah, that's part of why we got good speakers like guys you've heard from. So look, thanks for the platform. My name's Ricky Archer, for those who don't know me. Most importantly, I'm a Jungan man from North Queensland, up on the Western Tablelands, wearing a couple of hats. I'm a new board member to Landcare Australia, and I want to acknowledge my fellow board members and thanks to our chair and CEO for giving me this opportunity. My day job is the CEO of NALSMA, which is the North Australian Indigenous Land and Sea Management Alliance, and I'm looking forward to some synergies that we can get into in terms of what the Landcare movement has as an opportunity to strengthen proper Indigenous involvement and engagement participation in the Landcare movement. I'm only new to Landcare. I haven't been to any other Landcare conferences. All I thought of Landcare in the past was planting trees. So there's a lot more going on. Like I said, new to Landcare, I'm still learning a lot. But I've got a background of, our mob's been doing Landcare for 60,000 plus years. So we should have, a bit in our favour to be able to participate in this Landcare movement in a more appropriate, in a more effective, more efficient way. There are a couple of things that I want to set the context for, and Victor touched on some of it in his presentation. It's really easy to organise a cultural land management panel and talk about how we integrate traditional knowledge into land and sea management practices. Something we don't really focus on and don't talk about a lot is that a lot of these knowledge systems have strict protocols in place. There's cultural authority and there's a cultural way of doing things. So I just wanted to be mindful and kind of, use the opportunity to the types of things Victor's been talking about. I always like going to, we've been to how many conferences where we've talked together and I've listened off this bloke, and one thing I love doing is seeing the reaction of the audience. You look around now, there's lots of nods and agreement in what Victor's saying. 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. You'd get a lot of people screwing their faces up, a lot of people shaking their heads. So
walking out the door.
And walking out the door, honestly. So I'd like to, again, use the opportunity that I wanted to pose this, opportunity through the discussions we've been hearing here at Landcare Conference to learn off the example of what's been happening in the Aboriginal fire space, the cultural fire space, because if we can replicate and duplicate that across other aspects of Aboriginal land management practices and integrating traditional knowledge, we've got an example to go off. So that's enough from me for now. Thanks, Victor, for opening the session, and thanks, Suzanne, for showing us that powerful video. Have we? Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Shall I introduce?
What do we want to do?
I don't know, no, what's next?
Well,
I think while we're waiting for a question from Costa, I was told I didn't have to worry about any questions. But can we have a quick opening statement about what's on your mind? Use the stage, you've got it, say what you want.
I'll go first, thank you, brothers. It's good, being the only woman. No, seriously, I think in capturing what my dear brother Victor had said, is that if we take ourselves back to the beginning of time, when all of our elders created the first law circle, one of the things that they made sure they did when they created that first law circle that would govern the way we would participate in our world is they created a circle in the middle. And that circle in the middle is the children's fire. So whenever we sit down to do business, we always have our eye on the children's fire. That is the generations to come. And I know for me and my teachings, it's about not just the 7 generations ahead of me, but those 7 generations behind me. My responsibility as a grandmother, as I move into my grandmother-law stage, in understanding what it is that I leave as a legacy, that we all leave as a legacy for the generations to come. And I think that's the messaging we as First Peoples are saying. We're waiting. We have so much to share. But then it's also understanding within that space, Brother talked about our landscape, we have to understand what is our law, what governed us, how did we manoeuvre ourselves around. What I know of my country and what I'm a custodian of is a very old story, the Seven Sisters story, the Old Testament, first law story. The Blue Mountains are part of that story. Uluru and Katachuta mud pies in that story. That's what carved out our highway of each of those sacred places around that held parts of our story. There's big story in that. To learn that whole story is well over a month in ceremony. It's life, birds, bees, everything. Should, shouldn't. Who'll marry which way? Why we married fifth generation that way. Then we come down into the New Testament layer. And that layer is what we call the animal and plant world. So that created our lanes and our streets. But within those lanes and streets, we had unique addresses, street addresses. They held their beautiful story that kept the flow of what we call our songlines, our law, how we sung it up, how we cared for country, who was responsible for what. We didn't cross-mingle, all of it. And that's what governed us. And that's the responsibility that we have. But that's also what we want to be able to share. What is the law of this land, how we govern? And that's what Brother's saying. Brother's saying, that's what we're saying. And I think for me then, and this beautiful work that we did with Napachi, Napachi is give. Give. That's our land management practice. We give to country, it gives back to us. Napachi. That's so important. And one of the things that I know I'm really proud of with Yachadak, Yumbaka Aboriginal Cultural Heritage and Tourism Development Aboriginal Corporation, had to do that, acronym, was about ensuring that into the future, so we have a 22,500 acre property that we were able to acquire back. We're doing carbon, HIR carbon. Interesting. As Indigenous landholders, we want to burn that country because you're not supposed to under HIR. But we're saying, yes, we need to burn because that spinifex grass is too thick. Cattle can't go through there. There's no pick because we're adjusting cattle, but we're setting up nature reserves and cultural precincts, restoring springs. So what we do is we harvest from country, care for country, and we guest on country because we also have people that want to come and learn from us. So we don't have an Aboriginal cultural tourism experience. We have a guesting on country experience because we're all guests and we will share with you all what that experience is. Thank you.
Before I go to you, Victor, for some more comments, Raph, what do you want to say about yourself?
Firstly, I forgot my hat,
Hey,
so I feel a bit naked up here.
that's why we sit together.
But yeah, I'm honoured and privileged to be up here with these three. I'm Landcare's, been a big part of my life and family since I was a kid, and that's just natural. But Ricky taking me under his wing at Nowsma has allowed me to work across the top end, not just in my own, territory, the Northern Territory. I'm from Mariata, Muddy 7, which is just north of Port Keats, is my family, my region. But, the biggest thing I've learnt with Nowsma is all the different places I get to work in, all through the Cape York, down to Timber Creek, across to the Bournemouth region, and over to Broome. The most important thing is every time I go somewhere new is sitting down and not going there with, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to do this, this and this. The first thing I do is sit down and say, what do we need to do here with the people in that region? And you know, that's the most important thing. And you know, hearing what these guys up here is speaking about is the most important thing, is working together. So no matter what my job is or where I go, before I start anything, it's asking the people on that country where I am, what do you need? What do we want? How do we move forward and make this place better, or fix what's been broken or what's been lost? And through my work with NALSMA, I get to do that. So, yeah, from carbon burning to, you know, land and sea management, looking for turtles, you know, nesting sites, you know, anything. We get to tick off all those boxes, and I'm privileged and honoured to be up here. So I'd like to thank everyone for having us up here, but also to these guys for letting me sit next to them and have this privilege to be able to sit up here and talk, I guess, and take questions about anything, about land and sea management, and how do we move forward and work together.
Thanks, Ruff. Raphael, always have to remind him, use the opportunity to let everyone know you played 9 seasons at St Kilda. One of the greats. Look him up, everyone. I'm really privileged to be able to poach a new skill set to come and work in the Indigenous land and sea management space, because the pool's getting short. I can't keep up with Indigenous leaders in our sector because they're all flat out. They probably sit on 20 committees, and we have to look at different ways of doing things. Throughout the further questions, I'll get Raf to talk about some of the things we're doing in terms of this wave of digital transformation and the importance of making sure cultural knowledge underpins all these new technologies about looking after country. There's flash drones, there's flash ways of doing things, there's new tools to do everything. We want that to not take over being on country and the cultural importance of applying your knowledge. If there's some flash tools that help us do our job better, that's good, but we don't want it to replace the importance of traditional knowledge.
That's right, Ricky. That's exactly it. You know, and how traditional knowledge is what we call, and not everyone knows, is natural intelligence. Natural intelligence is why the old people were walking encyclopedias, and why I can go out on country and make the decision without using any little machine, or depending on the little needle thing, or looking at the wind and testing the wind. That all artificial intelligence is dangerous. It's dangerous for people. And now everyone looks out the window and they don't know what they're looking at. They're just looking at trees and sticks and bushes, because all the natural intelligence is going down. And like in that little picture, they got that, I don't really agree with it, but they got that ape thing, and then they go to another man, he steps up, and they got this fellow with a suitcase walking along, And it's meant to be a thing that's saying that we're evolving into a smarter race of people. But when we look at our connection with land and our social connection with all of the within our society, it's the other way around. We're going down the thing, and we're not even understanding the landscape. So we're getting dumber when it comes to connecting to our land, understanding our country. How is that possible, eh? How do we get like walking encyclopedias, go to the point, going up that little graph, and going to a man that's going looking at the country like this? It's just incredible. And that's why technology, we need to be able to shape technology with traditional knowledge too. And the more that we get involved with technology, the better. And what we need to be doing, we can use technology, it's great, I love technology, I love that electric guitar, I love playing music and all this sort of stuff. And we love the movies and all these things that technology does for us, the massage chair at the airport there.
You've been travelling a bit.
Yeah. I don't get them anymore because of the COVID thing, yeah.
Hey, you be careful, eh?
But that technology, you know, like, you can shoot for the stars, but never forget where you come from. Never let your feet leave the ground. So we can do all the technology stuff, we can create new inventions, we can do all of that. But what if we based it on natural law? And what if we base advancing our technology based on natural law? Then we'll be maintaining old values all the time, and we'll be maintaining that natural intelligence. It's like I said in the soil thing, see? And in that soil conference, it wasn't a soil conference, it was a soil presentation, eh? And when I was doing that presentation, they talked about how we've got to tread lightly on the soil, you know? And how we don't use bulldozers and running through doing fire breaks and upsetting our soils. And now we talked about just recently by getting all that lantana and fellas slashing away because we don't want to disturb the soil, so they're walking along doing the work. Not getting a bulldozer, oh, we'll just push it up, that's easier, mate. We'll just make a machine that picks it all out, and all the jobs gone, but more importantly, all that knowledge. And people don't get to have that interaction with the country to have all that experience. And they don't get to see then how one thing leads to the next thing and leads to the next thing, and how that knowledge evolves, and how then, oh, look, this fits with this now, and this. It's like the real fire and like the way we see Western fire at the moment, hazard reduction. Fire is fear. Hazard reduction, that's it. No healthy countries, no benefits that flow from them, nothing that we're talking about. That knowledge map that just shoots in every direction of all the categories of opportunity, from food to whatever it may be. But technology, we need to be careful, and we can't allow it to take over who we are as human beings and our responsibility to this planet.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to share a bit more around the fire. And I know after Brother came up and did the workshop with us crazy little pyromaniacs now, I think I've lost track of how many acres that we've burnt on country since coming. And the challenge for our rural fire and emergency services, or the crew there, was that we can't ask for a permit because we don't know when it's going to rain, because we're in desert country. So we need 30 mil of rain before we actually go and burn at a certain time. And so managing that, and then also how we share and thinking about how we lead by example, and watching our neighbourhood, who really didn't want to come and participate in that workshop when Victor came, sent the invitation out for everybody to come. And especially where we live out in central Queensland, it's a challenge. You know, here I am as an Aboriginal woman running a grazing property. What would I know? Well, I reckon I know a lot and enough, because I'm watching the neighbourhood now follow us when we burn. So we smile to ourselves and think, oh, we come home the other night and it was late and I could smell, I said, oh, there's smoke. I thought, oh, we got nothing here, eh? No. Because we were wondering about them, you know, they keep that coal, and birds like to sort of start it up again because they play tricks on us too when they like to, you know, run amok and get some more roasted insects and stuff. But when we got home, we could smell that, and of course our neighbour had burnt. But prior to that, I remembered he'd come over and to give us a hand, and just allowing them to observe, and brought a drip torch to help us do, because he thought it was a backburn. Let him go, did the drip torch, created the fire front. I'm up the other end of the paddock doing with Uncle, my little way. Just a little bit here, a little bit there, sat back, watched, little mosaic, cruising around, flare up, come back down, walking behind the fire, watching it, watching everything. And then up there on the other end of the paddock, but it needed to happen because they needed to observe the impact of creating a fire front and its own climate. And to witness that happen with this whirlwind and with this tornado coming through, and watching, because of what Victor's taught us, to look at the trees, and if the leaves are dancing, they're happy. But if they're swishing and swaying, we're going to lose it all. So then we look at that paddock now, because they've got to drive past it constantly, which will remind them of it. I guarantee now they won't be using drip torches because they know they're banned on our property now. But I had to let them do that, to see that, and why. Especially because that's a personal logistic cattle on our property, so they need good pastures. The other thing in learning and observing, as we are as land managers, is going, well, the October burn to the February burn provides us with different ground cover. Observing that, if we want to have grass and pasture for the cattle, but also for our native animals, and we want to introduce back the native grasses, then we know that the October burn will provide that more so for us than the February burn because it gave us more ground cover and herbage. So what is it? So as we start to reconnect to understand this and share this knowledge, I believe we're going to be able to bring our country back through fire, but also through the cleaning out of our waterways is what we talked about, because that's so important for us to drought-proof our property. And we were witness to that. We were witness to the return of koalas after that big water incident. You've seen the flow come through. And I remembered the next day we come up and we sat there after we went, because what we did was we had a 1,000-litre water trailer, and twice a day we would go up. We planted grasses, all of the native grasses around this water hole. We took about 2.5 metres of built-up silt out of that water hole, the first catchment point off our escarpment. The head of our headwaters, that escarpment, is the beginning of the Alice River. And that Alice River flows into the Barcoo. The Barcoo flows into the Thompson into the Cooper. My country is the beginning of the Lake Eyre Basin watershed. We have to take that seriously because we've got to look after the mob downstream. So as we're watering this twice a day drought, goes back to probably 2020, I think it was 2021 when we did that project. We're in drought still. And then every day we came down after releasing 2,000 litres of water, there were new animal footprints. They could smell the moisture and it excited us. And then we were a few days in, a good week or more in, every day going down, watering it twice a day. It started to hold water. And there was a puddle of water left in the bottom of it. We were that excited. So we went home, we come back down the next day, and there he was sitting in the tree, in the big yellow jack tree. The koala, which we named Buddy. Got so excited, we went home and made a shepherd's pie and took some wine and had a picnic with him. Because we were so excited. The amazing thing for Uncle Vincent, who you've seen there, he's desert, he's out there, Muttajula, Uluru, never seen a koala in the wild. So the excitement even for him. But what we were doing is we were doing our rainmaking ceremonies. We were doing our ceremony to cleanse and heal country, Napachi, Napachi. And then not long after that, then those floods. So you remember those cyclones that were in the east and the west and up the north? And it came, well, that was the one. Came down, it just flooded us through. And we haven't looked back. Our seasons, our grasses, everything in country, the emus. Watching the emus even close to the homestead, coming into my front garden, because they're family. Hello, family. We say, how you family? Here, where you going? Show us your chicks. That dad sits there real proud. I got 12 this season. That's a good season then. So yeah, it's important for us. Really and I think fire is one of those things because it nurtures and brings back our food and medicine for country.
Thanks. Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things and get the audience thinking about it. And Victor touched on it, Suzanne touched on it as well. Land and sea management is a good space to be in, but sometimes you get the shits. It's really competitive. Like Victor said, you know, we got the Landcare logo there. It's one country. We're all looking after the one country. Why are there so many different avenues for competition to get the same outcomes? So what I want to get into your way of thinking is that we are still going to be competitive, but if we develop an appropriate platform to have these discussions, to see where other people's values lie. And you've just heard this story here, how many valuable aspects of that one story, how much cultural obligation plays a role in looking after country. For that patch of country down there, she's the best one to be looking after it. Not whichever state or agency might be poking their finger in there wanting to do this or that. But in terms of competition, the competition's not in our favour. We want to change the power balance. You know, we've got a cultural knowledge system that's 60,000 plus years old, yet we continually need to be validated by Western science, which is only a few thousand years old. We need to be validating Western science. This is not having a crack at academics or academia in general. You know, we work closely with them to get the things that we need to do. But that's the thing around power imbalances that, you know, I'd like to use this opportunity to, you know, to get you thinking about. You know, we've had ministers poking around here the last few days. You know, how many people would have been trying to get an audience and say, look, this is my program, fund this. Let's set up a meeting over here. Everyone here is working towards the same goals, otherwise we wouldn't be here, but there's so many different ways to get there. I just want to get us thinking about just listening to people like this a bit more. You know, the science is there, the data's there, the rich cultural knowledge is there, but most of the times the challenges we have about changing people's attitudes and perceptions, because all the writing's there.
Absolutely. Makes me think about native foods. And that's one of those key things as well about harvesting off country and native foods. So the other hat, we like hats, me and brother. So I should swap the other hat. Maybe I should have brought another coloured hat, hey? Anyway, so I'm the chair of the Australian Native Foods and Botanical ANFAB, the peak for the Australian native foods industry, and it's quite interesting. And how we shift and move our mobs. So we've got the First Nations Native Foods and Botanical, ILSC helped and assisted to establish. So we have a stronger voice for Indigenous people. I'm charged with ensuring that ANFAB, as being seen as a non-Indigenous organisation, is equally represented. And the stuff and where we're moving in this space and the opportunity for our communities to go and prune and harvest off country. But it's also allowing landholders to understand the benefits that they can get from country. And I've come back to that science and that meshing with science, and we're getting a whole lot of plants tested at the moment. I've sent with medicinal. So we're doing a project with James Cook University looking for a cure for inflammatory bowel disease. Griffith University, Parkinson's disease, that connection and relationship that's now happening with First Nations people and our knowledge and the benefit sharing that is going to come with that. It's a shared benefit when we look at the native foods. But it's quite interesting though, because the scientists will get so far when they were testing these things, and they said, oh, you know, we found this in there and it's made up with this biomatter and it's got this bit, and it'll be good for this and this. But we're not sure about the toxicology and getting the toxins out. Sat there for a while and I thought, I think you fellas have just got to ask us, but I don't know if we're going to tell you yet, because you've got to pay us to tell you how we evolved as scientists over many millennia, to figure out how to get those toxins out. How did we, I don't know who the guinea pig was, but how did we figure out that a bean, if you roasted it, pounded it, roasted it, pounded it, put it in running water for about 3 weeks, or maybe less, not sure, take it out, roast it, pound it, now make your little Johnny cake. There was no $1 million machine that told us that. But our ancestors, through dreams, shared and told us that once we understand our songs and our stories of country. That's what sits here. I think we sometimes spin out how we can see things. You know, we cruise around and I often laugh because people say, hey, how did you see that bush banana? oh, well, we'll teach you how to see out of our lens, how to see country the way we see country. That's what Brother's been doing. Both brothers. That's what we're all about, all First Nations, is to see country through our lens, the indigenous lens.
When you talked about the farmer, next door, and he come over, with the drip torch and that, and he was giving you a hand, and and having that community there, and like Ricky was saying now, like agencies understand we're empowering the community, and it's empowering those regions and people. That's where we put our investment, And when we see them, like the neighbour come over and get involved, that's how they start to build that base of those relationships with each other. Because, before when we do a workshop, people be coming over and going, oh, this is really skeptical, and some will be like, I'm a third generation farmer, you can't tell me about this country. But as soon as they have 1 hour of understanding and looking at country, they go, whoa, I've never seen this. And I see now how I've actually contributed to destroying this land. And they didn't realize that before. And you see people change. It's a really amazing thing. The country is a really powerful thing. It changes people. And how you make all this magic happen is all through the country. The country is the boss, and all the structures coming from country will always work. And that's how the fire has been so going around and so successful, But what's happening in all these places, all the communities getting involved, White fellas getting involved with the black fellas, and all together. And when they see the Indigenous leadership and doing it on the ground, they've all got good relationships. Yeah, that fella's a good mate of mine. We want them to come too, learn and work with us. And so the relationships are there, and if we're investing in those, it snowballs. And then that one farmer in one place, I went another place, he was trying to get this happening, the workshop going, and all the other farmers hated him. Oh, he's got an Aboriginal fire thing going, he's doing Aboriginal burning. And so he was alienated. And so he'd walk around town, and they all look at him and talk about him, look at that fella there, doing Aboriginal burning, ha, ha, ha. And he'd tell me, oh, Vic, I feel really uncomfortable, They all alienated me. I said, get the workshop going, come on. 4 farmers turned up. Then we did the thing, and there was only 4. Who cares? Let's do it. Bang, did a little burn, show, whatever like that. Then he's like, oh, I'll go home now. Then I come back, and then this minute that farmer ring up, hey, Vic, can you come back again? Everyone's my friend again now.
Aye.
And they said, we got another workshop. I turned up in the car for 4 farmers. Oh, now we've got 10 coming up, mate. There was 100 there. And straight after the next workshop there. Because those 4 farmers went out and talked to that fella, and talked to that fella, and went down to the pub and said, no, that fella, he's a good fella. You got to understand, you don't understand what it's about. You got no idea. You got to go and see for yourself. And that's what happens, and it keeps going and going. And so it's been the private landholders and the community that have been a really big ally of all this work right around Australia. We've got training grounds around the country. If they're not Aboriginal lands, they're private lands. We've got one up there in far north there, where all these fellas, they've got 7,000 hectares. 7,000. And it's beautiful, beautiful landscape. It used to be a cattle farm, and it's just chock-a-block full of weed. Weeds everywhere. Couldn't even walk through some of it, And so it was about 7 or so, the hippie fellas, they bought it, And then they said, Vic, can you help us here? And then I said, yeah, we'll help you manage it. They said, you manage it, you can run your workshops, you can train the rangers on it, you can get everyone involved, and we'll help. That'll help get it out in the region. And it was that landholder that gave his land up and said, you can use it for the training model, and that gave us the opportunity to demonstrate the burns, to get the Rural Fire Service. They was like, at first, no, we don't want to give you a permit, they're doing Aboriginal burning. No, well, won't answer the phone when they call. And then the National Parks were drilling helicopter bombs all over the ranges, and they were burning all the canopies, and we were looking at the wrong time. We go, hey, what are they doing? And so we did that burn on that property. We got the Rural Fire Service there, we got the rangers there, and we had an ability for us to educate everyone. And now in that whole region, like I said before, the park ranger just go in front of all them Jabberguy mob and go open the map on the desk, roll it out, pick what you want to do this year. It's up to you. And that's why everyone got a role. You're all important. And even down in other places, there's people who have 40,000 hectares of land. I don't know why they got 40,000 hectares for, but they got 40,000 hectares of land. And they're like, come here, do it on my property. And so we got a waiting list of private landholders saying, come and do it on my property. And at the same time, the farmers, come and do it on my property. Because when you go on their farm, and like it's all full of some invasive native or weed, and slowly it's all closing in on their property and choking them up and losing their livelihoods. And so next week, I go out to an organic cattle farmer with the TOs, and we're training the TOs on his farm and training the practitioners, remember? Training them, getting that knowledge base started in that region. And so the farmers there, you come on, do it here. Anyway, first burn, I opened up country you couldn't even put your hand in. I showed them how to burn heavy fuel loads with a little fire underneath and just kill all them plants that didn't belong in that system that was taken over, causing a monoculture, and freeing all the trees, parent trees, and the elders that were in there choking to death. And he learned that putting trees and farming cattle with the trees is good, and I showed him how the more people used to do it with trees and just natural bushland. Not clear the whole thing and make it all, one big open paddock. What about all them sheep there walking around in an open paddock in the hot sun there? No shade.
I know, I make you want to go put an umbrella over them, sometime.
What if I put a big jumper on you and put you out in the hot sun, mate? You walk around. And then when we look up the top of the hill there, we see that tree, one tree on the hill. And I say, look up there on the hill, there's one tree in your property, one. I said, let's go have a look. Walk up the hill, Yeah, go. I say, hey, look, all the sheep, they're all underneath that tree, like 100 of them there, all trying to get under that shade,
Make it even hotter.
And then when I showed him where the tree, I said, now look at all the green around your tree. Look at all the green grass. We're on top of a hill. Look at all the green grass. I said, now look down and look where, and naturally down a landscape that should be greener. Look down now, the landscape now, everything was brown. Dead grass, sitting there, laying on each other. I said, look, they're here not only for the shade, but they're getting better nutrients and nicer grasses and all this sort of thing. And so this organic cattle farmer next, we're working with next week, we've opened up that whole country, and there's so much more to do on his property. He's getting his livelihood back, and he's not going to be able to go, well, I can't do anything here. I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to go and buy another block of land, and we'll do it over there, and we'll stuff that up too. And so they want to say, all right, we want to better this for our next generations. We want to hand it down to the next one in a better condition. And that's what all them farmers are saying. And all young 40-year-old farmers, 40 is young, Remember that. And so that's where, like, for the process and bringing in all that community, like you're saying, and bringing everyone involved, and how we get involved and making those lands available, because we don't want to take the land over, we want to help you manage it, and if it's going to train people and do this, and it benefits that, and benefits this, and then it gets old Farmer Joe down the road to burn, because he's been watching what's going on that property. It's infectious. It spreads like fire.
Raf, I want to get your perspective on a couple of things that come up in the last two discussions around the importance of building trust and relationships before you even go and do any work. So whether it's, the examples that where it can send you into Cape York with no background context, but how important it is just being able to connect with people at a cultural perspective and a cultural level, regardless of what work you're doing. What's some of your key sort of messaging to how we do that and what you've seen work?
Yeah, like I mentioned when I first spoke, I can go in with 100 lists, what my task is and how I'm going to do it, but, I won't do any of it or even try to do any of it unless I speak to the people on that land or who's there in the first place and say, well, what do you need? How do I go about this? because otherwise you're walking in blindfolded. And you've got to be willing to look through someone else's lens, you know, their concept of how to do it. You know, you might be a professional in that industry, but, you know, these mob have been doing it on that country for hundreds of years. And yeah, for me, like I said, anywhere I go, doesn't matter, you know, if I've done it before up the road and they did it a whole different way, I'm still going to come to the main family or the main older on that property, or the mob have been doing it for years, and say, right, this is what we've got to do. I might have the best drones, I might have a helicopter coming in tomorrow, but unless I get your perspective on it and how to do it, yeah, it's like I'm saying, you can have all the best technology in the world, but unless you have that cultural knowledge and, you know, understanding of the land, and, you know, not every bit of land is the same. You know, you could be only 5 minutes up the road, but, you know, you could be overgrown, you could have thousands of weeds, and up the road they'd be looking after their country a lot better than you have been, or so you have to get their perspective, and, you know, you learn from someone else's eyes and what they've been doing. So I think that's the best thing I've learnt doing my role is, you know, every day is different, and I could walk in and say, I know everything. I don't need your help. I'll do it because I've done it up the road. I've done it over here. I've done it over there. But you can walk in there and you can ruin everything that they've been putting together for the last 20, 30 years. So that's my biggest thing. And I, you know, anyone in the room, if you're going to go work somewhere new or, you know, meet new people, you ask them how they've been doing it, or, you know, you sit down first before you do anything and work out the best plan, or what's worked for them in the past, or what hasn't worked. And, you know, yeah, that's probably the hardest thing with, you know, for everyone, like competing against each other and trying to be the best, and instead of working together and helping each other for the same outcome, like we're talking about, we all want a better country, we want a healthier, you know, we want better land, we want our culture to be, you know, back to where it was, and, you know, knowing what we knew hundreds of years ago, how to look after the land, how to do it properly. And so I'm like, I keep saying how thankful I am for my job and what I get to do, because I get to go and meet people across the top end of Australia, and learn different ways of how people do it, and slowly put together like different pieces of puzzles to think, when I go somewhere new, I can mention this and this and this, what I've learnt down the road. This might help you. And then take the best from them. And then all of a sudden, you know, you end up with the best model, hopefully. But at the same time, we're all going for the common goal. And that's what I love about my job. And, you know, being able to share that here today and sit up here with these guys is incredible for me. So
That's a good point. I just want to quickly put to you guys before we go to Matt Costa for a question. Don't think that it's a one-size-fits-all in terms of what cultural land management is. You know, he just talked about you're different in this country, it's different up the road. What works down this way might not work up this way. The importance of cultural heritage is giving the power and values to the mob from that particular patch of country to implement what they've got in their knowledge systems. So, you know, we talk about cultural land management at a big scale, but just be mindful that those protocols and right way of doing thing around what is cultural management in practice, talk to the mob who are the boss of that place. Costa's got a question for us.
Yeah, I've got just one question before you sort of go into your wrap, but I think it's a combo of two questions, and you'll see what I mean. Do you think Landcare as a movement is in the right place to work with First Nations and advance their rights and interests? What's the first step communities can take to get involved with Indigenous land management?
You're gonna go on?
Maybe to get my conflicts of interest out of the way, I can just say it first, and then you can say things that I might not be able to say. Noting I am a new board member of Landcare Australia, but like I said, I've been more ingrained in Landcare from a cultural perspective of looking after country. My first reply is definitely. We need to use every platform possible to strengthen the role of cultural land management and cultural knowledge and its role in looking after our country. What we need to be mindful of is that we don't use these platforms to drown out the importance of Indigenous leadership and Indigenous voices leading what cultural movements need to happen in terms of how they manage their estates. So again, looking at using, and this is why I'm really excited to be involved with Landcare, is because I see an opportunity to have that power balance changed a bit. And most board meetings I go to in all these other boards you're involved in, everyone just talks. I'm used to being on boards where I'm the only blackfella on, and as a lot of us would be in those positions. Landcare has listened in my short time. I'm really excited off the back of my first conference here, seeing responses from people here, the level of interest online and in person. So I think yes. Sorry, I dragged out yes for that.
I think for me, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. I remember sitting there yesterday and I was listening to a whole lot of things and actually got quite overwhelmed with the fact that we're here, because we have been so used to saying hello, when them fella gonna listen to us, walking out over this, don't talk to us. For Landcare though, I think we could be proud. We're here. We actually have stepped into the space of being included.
Yeah. That feels really nice too.
Hey.
It really does. They have so much interest, and I was walking out the door there last night there, some people walking like this, and we're going back out. Yeah, mainly this one. But we're walking out the door there in the escalator, and I listen to the ladies in front, and they're going, oh, what a wonderful, wonderful conference. And I'm going, oh, yeah, listen, I'm listening, walking behind. She goes, the one thing I really loved about it? And then the lady goes, what is it? And she goes, the fact that now that there's a lot of Indigenous involvement. Yeah. It's so wonderful. Yeah. And I was just like listening there. And vice versa. It's so wonderful to have everyone else engaging that way and together, That's what we want. Indigenous knowledge and culture is a sharing. We share. It's a sharing and caring, see? Give, napaji, napaji. So it's sharing and caring all the time, And when old Captain Cook came, he was there, the mob fed him, looked after him. And, they thought, oh yeah, if you want to come here, then it's like Mother Nature, reconciliating anything, trying to reconcile into its natural world. Same thing with the people that said, oh yeah, you want to come here, you can come stay, but you got to do it this way. Look, you got to look up, this is how the land works, and this is how you do it. But he didn't listen, eh? So that's that sharing and caring, and that's what that gesture is always there. It always has been. It's just never getting that opportunity. And so for the other side of coin now, and how a Landcarer or how someone in the community wants to get involved in Indigenous land management, then it's like I said before. It's how we get the agencies to support the communities. They got to change to be able to give not only opportunity for us, but also for the rest of the community to be able to get involved. So it's up to the agencies too. That's their responsibility to be able to invest in those regions, will allow those opportunities, see? And the other one is the story about the farmer and how people are getting their land and saying, come do it on my property, come do it on my property. We've got that waiting list. And we want to run a workshop somewhere, and some community is going, oh, we're just getting started. Hey, this fellow here is offering your land. You don't have to go through the bureaucracy and jump through the hoops, because we don't want to do it in a national park straight away, because them fellas aren't really helping out too much in your community because it's still a new concept. And also how Landcarers and how they also get involved in the projects as well, and and a lot of communities that are doing their work, Landcarers come give them a hand, And once we have that right program, then when we're doing the training and workshops, we're also setting work plans as well. And so when I go somewhere, I say, yeah, just keep doing that for the next 3 months. Or you get all this cut out and all this grass pulled out, whatever it may be, and next year we'll burn then, because we can't burn it with all this sort of type of vegetation, or we've got to prepare it first. We can't just light it up, because we've got to protect the soils, remember? And so they can be busy, them fellas busy over there, and if we're all aiming at that same goal, then they can have that involvement. It's all there, but we've got to get the ball rolling, And like I said, all those cogs spinning. And so if you're a land carer at home and you want to get started and it hasn't started in your region, then go and talk to your mob. Go and say, well, look what they're doing over here. Look what they're doing over there. How about we just get a little meeting, a little workshop together? Let's see what happens. And that's how it all has grown, is through that relationship between the mob and the people in the community. One, then evolving that. And you want to see the happiness and excitement. It's just so great,
I think too, because for me, I don't know if we've got a Landcare group out where I live. So we're doing what we're doing, and I'm really grateful to have been included in this Landcare conference, to have a voice and hopefully plant the seed and say, hey, help us do what we need to do out there to bring more people on board.
We're at the final end of our discussion today, and I just want to use the last 2 minutes here to say that I think we're really privileged to be able to hear these perspectives that we've had here today. So well done, whoever runs the show, for getting these mob to come here and talk. I wanted to also let you know that you don't just have to wait for these sessions to talk about cultural land management. Go and talk to these mob any day of the week. Go and humbug them outside, ask them stuff. Use the opportunity while you've got it. Where you make the difference is not going to conferences, but what you do when you go home. So use that, to invigorate. Go and reach out to, your local mob that are out on country, looking after country. Even if it's just a, hey, g'day, because that's all you need to start with, to start changing some attitudes, start building some trust. Please grab these guys as you see them, in the closing sessions outside. Go and ask him. Get his cards off him. You love giving them out. You use the opportunity. We don't just have to be limited to this. I just wanted to, without thanks to use, thanks to all the audience for listening, and I'm going to let you have the final content.
Yeah, so I don't like to go away without getting you all to participate in a dance. So if I can get everybody up. So this dance, so when we know that we're all quite aware of the Uluru Statement from the heart, and we're all about truth-telling. So this is a bit of a truth-telling story. So my old people, who were rounded up on my mother's side, my Wakakabi side, on my mother's side, were all rounded up and put into a place called Cherbourg Aboriginal Mission. So Joe Bjorky-Peterson run that country. So he had peanut farms. So he'd grab our old people. You get them old people, they had to go out and pick peanut. But they had to get up before the sun come up. They couldn't take food with them. So they used to hunt, but they had to hide the food. They had to hide the food because if he seen they had food, he'd take it from them. So they used to harvest with their Mai Madiri. Picking, Mai Madiri. So you all repeat after me. Mai Madiri. And we're down, picking. Then with their hands, we've got things up here. Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga. But we say thank you. Birrel Balingu, Birrel Balingu, Birrel Balingu. Stomp our feet like that. Birrel Balingu, Birrel Balingu. But before we go, we know that we like to have some rhythm and we need some sound.
Yeah.
So, I need didgeridoo. I can't play that, we all know that. I'm not even going to make that sound. How would a didgeridoo sound, brother? So could I have all the men make that sound, please? Eh?
That sounds like an airplane.
Proper, eh?
Eh?
They gotta get loud, eh?
Yeah, like with a little bit of voice. That's it. That's
Now,
good.
sisters, we got the best bit. We got the rhythm. Clapsticks. So you ready? So, May Madiri, May Madiri, May Madiri, May Madiri, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Birral Balingu, Birral Balingu. Now there's one more thing after this, and that is Wadugi, Wadugi, Wadugi. Yeah. Okay? Start again. Ready? So, where are we? What was it? Now, what was it we started with? May Madiri, May Madiri, May Madiri, May Madiri, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Mara Malanga, Birral Balingu, Birral Balingu, Birral Balingu, Wadugi, Wadugi, Wadugi. Yeah. Now, we're picking hands, say thank you. Wadugi, Wadugi is hide from the white fella. So you was all hiding from each other. So that's what they did, thank you.
We see now, we're getting off.
I think we're finished.
We finished? Yep.